Rain, Rain, Chapter 42. Protecting Rain. What did you say? My father asks. I shake my head. He's so much bigger than I am. I hadn't noticed how thick and hard his hands are, how wide his shoulders are. 2, 3, 5, 7. Answer me, my father says in that same low voice. I slip off the edge of my chair and sidestep toward my bedroom. Come here. No. All right. My father takes 2 giant steps towards me, his arm raised, his fingers clenched into a fist. I can see each white knuckle, as hard as a stone. He's never raised his fist to me, not once that I remember. This is because of not wanting to be the kind of father that his father was. I'm looking from my bedroom door to the front door, trying to decide which one is closer, when a blur of blonde fur hurtles into the air and leaps against my father's chest, growling. Rain! I cry. She lands on the floor and gets ready to spring again, but before she can, my father lowers his fist. He brings it down on Rain's back, and she lurches sideways and crashes into the legs of the table. I hear a crunch and Rain's yelp of fear and pain. I turn and fling myself beneath the table so fast I skin my knees on the floorboards. I gather Rain into my arms and slide us under the very center of the table. My father reaches for us, and I scoot us away from his grasp, again and again, like we are targets in a game. Don't touch her, I cry. Do not touch her. Do not hurt her. I won't let go of Rain. After a few moments, the hand disappears. I hear footsteps crossing the rooms to the front door. The knob begins to turn, then stops. I slide forward a few inches and peer out from under the table. If you say one word about this to anyone, Rose, one word. My father is breathing heavily. He has to pause before he continues speaking. If you say one word to Weldon, to Mrs. Kushel, his gaze drifts to Rain, who, although she's trembling, has also poked her head out from under the table. He glares at her. He doesn't finish his sentence. He doesn't have to. I slide Rain behind me so that she's out of his sight. My father grabs his keys and slams the front door behind him. I hold Rain for a long time. We're breathing heavily too. My breath comes in gasps, and Rain pants and drools. When I hear Sam Diamond's car start up, I crawl out from under the table, I pull Rain after me, and we sit on the couch. I pat her whole body over and over. Nothing seems to hurt her. I make her walk across the floor. She doesn't limp. Later, I feed Rain her dinner. I walk her earlier than usual, even though this is an unwelcome change in our schedule, and then I close her into my room. I wonder how I'd be able to protect her when I'm at school. I'm still up when my father comes home. I'm sitting in the living room with the TV on. My father stands before me and says, I'm sorry, Rose. It won't happen again. I look into his eyes. I don't know how to read what I see there, so I say nothing. Really, my father continues, I'm very sorry. Very, very sorry. Okay, I say. This may be a sincere apology. Chapter 43. What Mrs. Kushel Says. Time passes in school the way it always does. Mrs. Kushel changes the bulletin board from holidays to We Are the All Artists. Some of the snow melts, and for a while the playground is muddy and wet instead of snowy and wet. The next holiday will be Martin Luther King Jr. Day. On a morning that is dark and rainy and chilly, Mrs. Liebler walks me to our classroom as usual. But something that is not usual is that Mrs. Kushel takes me to the back of the room as soon as I have hung up my coat and put my things in my desk. "I want to speak to you privately, Rose," she says. I wonder if I have done something that she and Mrs. Liebler will write about in the weekly note to my father. Okay, I say. I think about homonyms. Tide and tide is a new one. I wanted to let you know that the paper got a call about rain yesterday. Tide, tide, died, died. Are you listening to me, Rose? Yes. A man named Jason Henderson phoned. He said someone had just sent him the article and that Rain is his family's dog. The newspaper put him in touch with Happy Tales, and Mrs. Caprell is certain that he and his family are Rain's original owners. All their information matches up from the information from Rain's chip. Also, they have lots of photos of themselves with Rain. Mrs. Kuchel pauses and looks at me seriously. I don't know whether this is good news for you or bad news. The article worked, I say. Yes, it did. Would you like to know how Rain got separated from the Hendersons? Yes. They always took her collar off when she was in the house so that it wouldn't get snagged on anything. One day the Hendersons went out and left Rain at home alone. A neighbor dropped by to leave something in their kitchen, and Rain slipped outside without her collar. The neighbor didn't see her leave, so it was several hours before anyone knew she was missing. This happened 2 days before your father found her, Rose. The Hendersons weren't irresponsible after all, I say. It was an accident. Rain left their house without her collar, just like she left our house after the storm without her collar. Yes, a sad accident. We'll never know how Rain wound up so far from home, but she did. The Hendersons looked for her in their own town and put up flyers and placed an ad in the paper, but no one called to say they had found her. Because we had her. Mrs. Kuchel cocks her head to the side. But now you've done a very brave thing, like Ms. Perlman said. Okay. The rest of the story you learned yourself. The Hendersons had to abandon their home after the storm, and they're living with relatives now. That's why it was so hard to locate them. Mrs. Kuchel pauses. They want Rain back, Rose. They love her and miss her and want her very badly. Okay.